Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Oh my goodness, and we are continuing to have technical problems. I've got this big thingy on my face. Also, give me just a moment. Okay, we got that off my face, Joseph, but we're back on the air.
Yeah, I didn't see anything covering you from my side, so although I could see my camera's icky, so I'm going to toggle DPI to try to get that to clear up.
Okay, and I need to get us back on the air over on this other channel. Hang on just one moment, folks. We're almost back.
Do not adjust your set. It is not your equipment.
It's just us and our technical issues, but we're back, and I apologize for the glitch. Let's see if we can get this out, this final channel. We're not on all the channels we were on before when we got taken off, but okay, we're back up. We're on most of them. We're not over on Wimkin, but that's okay. No big deal. It is a big deal, but not a big deal. Thanks for hanging in there. We lost Brendan along the way. He had to go, but you're still here, and we have more ground to cover. So again, sorry about the disruption there. We got kind of cut off, but we're back live, and we're going to get into this whole thing with Putin at the European Eastern Economic Forum. So I wanted to have you here with us tonight, Joseph, to help kind of analyze, get your comments on what Putin was saying of this. And we're going to run his speech. And I think, you know, what I did watch it overnight. And what I took from it was some surprising things. A lot of what he was saying sounded very much like what we hear from people over here, our leaders, our economists, our politicians, our World Economic Forum people. Sounds very much the same to me in many respects, but I'll let you assess.
Yeah, just the Eastern version side of the coin.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Putin does not oppose, well, he opposes Klaus Schwab's New World Order because he wants his version of the New World Order. People forget he came to power in a coup against Yeltsin in '99, and Yeltsin only lived because he agreed to resign and step down and let Putin take over. And Putin's been dictator of Russia ever since 1999. But people don't know any history. They don't know any history.
Very true. So here's the way it kicked off.
Vladimir Putin of the
This is the
Russian
Eastern
Federation.
Economic Forum, not the World
Prime
Economic
Minister
Forum.
Anwar Ibrahim of Malaysia.
Their version of the
Vice President
WEF.
That's right, their version of the WEF. So it's like the other World Economic Forum, in my view. I mean, the stage, everything, it's all the same. Even the chairs that they sit in look to be very similar, right? The whole format for everything.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to welcome you to the plenary session of the Eastern Economic Forum. This year, the theme of the forum is the Far East 2030, joining efforts together for creating new opportunities. Mr. President, for many times now you've said that the 21st century's priority is the development of the Russian Far East, what has been done, what is yet to be done, how is Russia building its relations to the countries of the region.
Building its own world order.
Right. Well, we're talking about the BRICS nations here, right? This is what it's about, the alternative to the U.S. Western economic system. It's important. We need to listen to
Prime
this.
Minister Anwar Ibrahim, distinguished Vice President Han Zheng, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome all the participants and the guests of the 9th Eastern Economic Forum. Russia and Vladivostok, in particular, as is tradition, hosts business people, technical and scientific teams, CEOs of leading companies and officials in the early September. Those experts and entrepreneurs who show interest in the Russian Far East, as well as interest in the infinite opportunities this unique part of our country is opening up for creation and for mutually beneficial partnership. As we know, the development of the Russian Far East has been defined as our national priority for the whole 21st century, as our moderator has just pointed out. And life itself has confirmed the aptness and the importance of this decision. The challenges we are facing recently, as well as the trends we are witnessing in the world economy, all of that is testimony to the aptness of our decision. We see that business ties, trade routes, and vectors of development are reorientating towards the east and to the global south. And our Far Eastern regions provide us with a direct gateway to these promising and developing markets. They allow us to overcome the barriers some Western elites are trying to impose upon the whole world. And what's most important, the Russian Far East is a great space which helps realize your entrepreneurial initiative and launch projects, build new industries. The Far East, without exaggeration, is right now the most important factor for reinforcing Russia's positions in the world. It's the flagship of Russia in the global economic reality, and our future, to a large extent, will be dependent upon how fast the Russian Far East is developing.
So what do you think so far, Joseph? What are you taking from this?
Pretty boilerplate type openings, I would dare say here. I mean, he's certainly not gone into anything radical here yet. It's more,
But obviously, they're setting up an opposing economic system, and it's adversarial to the Western economic system.
Yeah. And it's welcome to the attendees, those of you entrepreneurs that I haven't poisoned with polonium yet.
Well,
and
okay,
brings together around
I shouldn't even laugh.
100 events,
I
panel
shouldn't.
sessions, and roundtables.
True. How many has it killed with it?
Of the Eastern Economic Forum. The forum brings together representatives of more than 75 countries and territories. These discussions are accompanied by substantial business dialogue. They result in concrete investment solutions and trade agreements. Just during the last 3 forums, more than 1,000 agreements have been signed to the tune of more than 10.5 trillion rubles. The Eastern Economic Forum has turned into a well-recognized platform for creating business ties and for discussing strategic issues related to the development of the Russian Far East and the Asia-Pacific as a whole. During my speech, in my remarks, I'm going to talk about some concrete steps towards this goal. I'll talk about our proposals to foreign partners in terms of reinforcing investment, trade, production, and technological cooperation in the Asia-Pacific. I'm also going to talk about the results as well as the plans we've got in economy, in infrastructure, and in the social sphere in the Russian Far East. I'll talk about raising the standards of living for the citizens of Russia living here. I'd like to remind you that starting from 2013, we've got a new strategic partnership as well as a comprehensive development strategy for the Russian Far East. This approach has turned out to be efficient over the last 10 years. We have either launched or are planning to launch more than 3,500 industrial, infrastructural, and technological, as well as educational projects. We see that the investment in the Russian Far East is growing 3 times over the last 10 years. It's 3 times as high as the average across Russia. And we see the outcome of this investment. We've got around 1,000 new enterprises, 140,000 new jobs. The industrial output dynamics in the region is 25% higher than on average across Russia since 2013. We've got 16 advanced development territories, and the free port of Vladivostok special preferential regime has been set up in the Kuril Islands, as well as a special administrative district on Ruski Island, which is hosting this forum.
So what we're hearing here is like 3,500 infrastructure projects. They're facilitating massive investments. They're doing that really with an economic system that is, I would say, not unlike what is already set up in the West. They're using capital, they're using investment, right?
Just as China's
Yeah.
What did they call that? What we accuse them? We call it not roads and bridge, but
The Belt and Road Initiative.
The Belt and Road Initiative. That's it. Exactly.
That's right.
Get them in debt, and we'll forgive the debt if you become one of our Axis powers.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like anything else. It's investment. That means debt. And I know that people are, this is what I'm talking about with the information warfare coming back the other way. Debt is so you can only have debt and make an economic system work if you have confidence in it. So one of the things that's being done to oppose the Western economic system is information warfare to subvert trust in the system, make people lose confidence in it. Your currency is not worth anything. Your investments aren't worth anything. If people lose trust in the system, lose trust that their stocks are going to be worth anything, that's what can cause a run on a bank. It can cause a stock market crash. That's what lack of trust will do. That can undermine the value of a currency as well, and actually destroy it if people lose confidence in it. Everything in the economy is about confidence.
Yeah. For Putin's version of the New World Order, they have to supplant the US dollar as the world currency. All of this is about that, to destroy the dollar as the world currency.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right, Joseph. I'm 100% with you on it.
But yet there's a lot of people who think Putin is their friend somehow. They don't get it. They lack 100 years of previous history.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, instead of the two sides coming together and working together, and you can argue back and forth, what we have here now is two competing systems. And the way this is being rolled out, it's being done in a way that's in competition with the US dollar. It's being done in a way that is meant to destroy the other system. That's what I'm hearing. If somebody else is hearing it differently, let me know. But it seems to me this is very confrontational, adversarial. This is a declaration of economic warfare.
Yeah,
unlike has allowed us to get assets back to Russia from offshores and from foreign jurisdictions to the tune of more than 5.5 trillion rubles. More than 100 companies are currently residing in this district, and we're going to move forward and forge ahead, improving the business climate in Russia and in the Russian Far East in particular. We're going to stick to new, more efficient approaches to cooperating with our foreign investors here. During the last Eastern Economic Forum, we announced the establishment of international advanced development territories in the Russian Far East. They should provide globally competitive conditions for foreign investors, especially from foreign friendly countries. The first international advanced development territory is scheduled to be set up here in Primorsky region. Our Chinese partners are showing a great deal of interest in that, as well as the Republic of Belarus, which can participate in building a new deep water port here in Primorsky district. And I would like to ask the Russian State Duma and the government to accelerate
the Belarusian puppet government,
which is required for setting up such advanced development territories. Another factor is another regulatory decision we are about to make. Starting from September the 1st this year, our legislation stipulates the possibility of using foreign standards in design and construction. Of course, I'm referring to the standards of those countries where the resilience and security requirements for construction works are at least at the same level of as ours, or stricter. I do hope this approach is going to be implemented here, in particular in the advanced development territories in the Russian Far East. Another important testimony to cooperation with foreign partners is the development of Bolshoi Ussuriysky Island in Khabarovsk region. We intend to build big logistics companies here, border checkpoints, build new roads. In May this year, during my state visit to the People's Republic of China, our Chinese counterparts, and we have agreed to work jointly on this project. This will give a powerful impetus to the development of Khabarovsk and the region as a whole. I would like to ask the government to work through all the organizational and financial matters to start implementing this plan starting from next year, 2025. Of course, one of the key issues for launching initiatives in manufacturing, in residential construction and development, and in upgrading the transportation network, we need to have in mind the supply of energy. The electricity consumption in the Russian Far East is growing. Right now it stands at 69 billion kilowatt hours per annum. By the end of the decade, it's going to rise to 96 billion, and some settlements and districts and big investors are running into shortages of electricity, which puts a constraint on the construction of new residential areas and industrial facilities.
I just want to pause it there for a moment. First of all, I saw a comment from someone in the chat saying the USSR hasn't been around since World War II. That's actually not true. The Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. It hasn't been that long. Also, Joseph, I just wanted to comment on China. References made there to China and its involvement in this new BRICS organization. Not that he's speaking specifically about BRICS here, but certainly talking about China. You know, China is not that long ago, at least not to me. 1970s, Nixon went to China, and back then, to normalize relations and open the doors to bringing China into the Western economic system, because at that time China had a third world economy, and the United States then invested all kinds of money. Companies went over there. Nixon opened the door to all kinds of investment. Now that didn't really start to take hold until after the death of Mao Zedong, and then we got a new leadership into China. And then around 1979 and into the 1980s, you saw major economic reform. They embraced the market economy more in a Chinese way, but it was that U.S. investment and the use of free markets and integration into the Western economic system that really facilitated the rise of prosperity in China.
Yeah.
It was doing that.
A couple things.
Yeah.
Their kind of version of perestroika.
Mm-hmm.
The Nixon strategy was correct. What happened, though, in the late 1990s and on, Americans selling out the West to China.
Mm-hmm.
They should have never been admitted to the World Economic Forum, or the WHO and all the other things, because at that point then they were not a earnest partner. Like I said, perestroika. Again, H.W. Bush and Clinton both blew the chance of perestroika actually working. And then again, Putin, through a coup, got Yeltsin to resign, and he's been dictator ever since 1999. We blew those chances. You alluded to this. He's not building this as a system to coexist with the West. These are steps to undermine and destroy the West.
I agree with that assessment, absolutely. And it's very unfortunate because, the reason I bring up China and Nixon and what came after in the 80s with Deng Xiaoping, who really was the one who adopted more free market economics and facilitated the actual move to prosperity for China. The reason I bring that up is it's like this is how China is now repaying the West. But we are also equally to blame in many respects because we haven't fostered proper relations. Now, that being said, I think there's maybe more of a chance for peace and prosperity into the future with China than there is with Russia, just because I think relations there are better and because
They hold our
the
debt.
that's right. So they're not gonna. I was gonna just say exactly that because they do so much business with us over here. China is Canada's second largest trading partner. May well be the biggest trading partner for the United States. So you have the two biggest economies in the world now trading with each other. And why would they want to blow each other up when they're both, you know, benefiting from that relationship? We need to find a way to make that work better, not worse. But this, this division, East versus the West again, I'm very worried about it. Now, we'll continue to watch here, but I also see that it's a problem with the American use of the dollar as a weapon that has undermined trust. Again, there's that word trust in the dollar and the economic system. It has shaken it to the core. Can't be doing that with your currency, with your money.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much of value in this. The important stuff, the stuff they're not saying out loud behind the scenes in the smoke filled rooms, are the things to be worried about. And BRICS, them also working towards digital currency. Meanwhile, idiots here think, oh, digital currency is great, unregulated and controlled by the government. Do you not understand tyrannical government? You're a useful idiot setting up the cashless society for them that will then nationalize.
Yeah,
we will. Every transaction and tax every transaction. They will know anything and everything you do.
In fact, he's gonna talk about that as we get into this.
I've already instructed the government to work with our big energy companies and business circles to draft a long-term program for developing the energy capacities in the Russian Far East and me to provide the tools for project funding. And through this program, we need to remove any shortages we anticipate in electricity supply in the Russian Far East. First and foremost, through commissioning new electricity facilities such as Nizhny hydropower plant in our Morsk region. It'll provide energy to the region and to the eastern polygon of the Trans-Siberian Railroad. It'll help protect the territories against freshets. And I would also like the government to think about building NPPs in the Russian Far East. We spoke about that yesterday. And this plan should take into account both the current needs as well as the needs we anticipate in future among the business and our citizens. And of course, it should take into account the long-term goals. And it should also reinforce the transportation and logistical capacities of the Russian Far East. The most important project in that regard is the expansion of the Eastern Polygon. Over the last 10 years, both in the Trans-Siberian Road and Baikal-Amur mainland, we have laid more than 2,000 and have upgraded more than 5,000 kilometers by the building or rebuilding more than 100 bridges and tunnels through Lena, Bureya, Selinga rivers. By the end of this year, the throughput capacity will have risen to 180 million tons. This year, we have opened a new third stage for the development of this transport network. We have already started doing that. We need to remove the bottlenecks, commission more than 300 facilities, such as the relief roads for Severomoysky, Kuznetsovsky, Kodarsky tunnel, as well as the bridge over the Amur River. But of course, this is even a more large-scale task because we need to create a second main track along the length of all of the Baikal-Amur mainland. We need to create 2 tracks for the Baikal-Amur mainland, and we have to electrify it along all of its length. In the next 8 years, we need to lay 3,100 kilometers of the railroads. Just to draw a comparison, it's the same length that was laid when the Baikal-Amur mainland and the Trans-Siberian Road were built, and the same as was laid when the Baikal-Amur mainland was being constructed from 1974 to 1984. So currently we are building a project which, in terms of its scale, is bigger than the biggest infrastructural project of the USSR, which used to be built by all the republics of the USSR, and their forces were very strange back then. So like the Trans-Siberian Road, we need to build a new road transport
Massive
corridor from St.
infrastructure,
Petersburg to
make work
Vladivostok.
projects,
And I'm not
public
just talking
works
about
projects.
increasing the throughput capacity and improving the quality, because it'll also give an impetus to internal and domestic tourism, because this road is going to go through dozens of Russian regions. There are several
And
stages.
Biden has helped them by
Last
removing
December, a
sanctions.
new road
They
was
are
built
oil
between
money
Moscow and
rich
Kazan. By the
again.
end of the year, it will have stretched to Yekaterinburg and then onwards to Tumen. They're going to be built bypasses for Omsk, Novosibirsk, Kemerovo, and Kansk. Further on, once the road has reached Vladivostok, this corridor will have stretched by more than 10,000 kilometers, including connections to border checkpoints with other countries. I'd like to remind you about the instruction I gave in my address to the Federal Assembly, namely to decrease the queues at the border and decrease the time for inspection of freight transport. It should be no longer than 10 minutes. In the railroad checkpoints, we have already reached a very good rate in terms of the time needed for inspection. In the Eastern Polygon and in other roads, railroads and roads, we have already started large-scale works, engaging professionals, engineers, designers across different regions of country. And through their dedication, they show that Russia is willing and can build fast and at a high quality, implementing infrastructural and transport projects of a national and global scale. I refer in particular to the Northern Sea route as an international logistics route.
So by
Over the last
financing
10
this, they're
years, the
leveraging it all
cargo
with
throughput has
financing.
increased
That means a lender and a
by
debtor,
whole
right?
magnitude. Back in 2014,
But when you
Yep.
start
the
pumping the money
cargo
out
throughput stood
initially,
at 4 million
that
tons,
creates
whereas
growth.
last
As long as
year
they get
it rose
productivity
to
on the
36
backside,
million, which is 5 times the record
they'll get the return on the
registered during the
investment if
Soviet
it all
times.
pans out.
We are going to
And while that
improve
goes
throughput
on, it puts a
capacity,
lot of
in
pressure
particular
on
through
the American
exploring the
and
Arctic,
Western European
mineral deposits,
economic system.
reorienting the
And a lot of this is
cargo,
our own
and
fault, our
increasing the
own
transit.
demise
We
by
have
taking off
a
sanctions
big plan
and letting them
for
get
developing the
oil
Northern
monies
Sea
rich
route,
again to
building
be able to afford this
icebreakers,
stuff.
increasing our satellite constellation, improving the coastal infrastructure, building emergency and rescue centers to pilot these logistical routes. 2 years ago, we
They do not
launched
want to
coastal voyages
coexist,
along the
but some people still
Northern
don't
Sea
get
route.
it.
Right now, this voyage includes 14 ports in the Russian Northeast, the Arctic, and the Russian Far East. Last year, the capacity of the Russian ports in the Northern Sea route,
Like you said, it's
exceeded
investment
40
as
million tons. This is but the
leverage.
beginning. We're
Then
going to
you
increase
owe
these capacities
us.
further, modernizing the
Instead of
transshipment
taking loans out with
capacities,
the IMF
expanding
or
close and
doing
far
business with
distance
Western companies, they're going to
railroad
go over
connections,
here and
which
just
will
do it
allow
over
us to
there.
increase
And
the
be
capacity of the
beholden to
Murmansk
them.
transport hub
Yes.
to 100 million tons. And
I
then
can't blame
even
them, but I
higher
wish
than
it wasn't
that,
going on like
our
this.
Eurasian
If I were an
integration
evil
partners are
mastermind, I
interested
wouldn't be
in
doing it any
developing
different than
Murmansk as a
Putin is doing
transportation
it.
hub. Our colleagues in Belarus
Or Xi
are
with the Belt and Roads
contemplating
initiatives.
the development of port infrastructure and building their own terminals on the Kola Peninsula, and would like to invite other countries to participate in this project. And I think, and I see there is an interest there. All large-scale transportation and logistics initiatives Russia is pursuing are built using cutting-edge engineering, digital and environmental solutions, which creates an additional demand for the products produced by Russian machine builders and metal companies. It also creates a demand for the services provided by science and high-tech businesses based on cutting-edge approaches.
See, they've got the new credit card. They're just starting to use it. On our side, we've used the credit card. We need the productivity coming back over time now, and we're not in a position to spend.
The subsoil
No, we're too in debt
resources of the Russian Far East
already.
Currently, all of Russian tungsten and tin, fluorite, as well as boron-containing ores are produced in the Russian Far East. It accounts for 80% of all of Russian diamonds and uranium, more than 70% of silver, and 60% of Russian gold. There are other key centers for production of these resources in Yakutia and Chukotka. There, the deposits have been explored for quite some time, and their capacities are limited, whereas the demand is constantly growing. So we need to ensure.
Yeah, like I say over and over, he's evil. He's not stupid. We are stupid.
Provide uninterrupted supply of commodities and raw materials for our economy, for our settlements, providing them with fuel and commodities. We need to use
colonialists.
Russian technology.
Meanwhile, under cultural Marxism, he's got university campuses crying about we are colonialists.
Specific programs for surveying,
undermining us within.
Mineral resources of the Russian Far East and Siberia.
Exactly right.
They should be part of the federal project Geology, reviving the legend. These programs
Iran,
are ready.
Russia, China.
We estimate that 1 ruble of government expenditure is going to attract 10 rubles of private investors, and this money is going to be paid back.
See, and then we keep hearing things about, evil BlackRock and evil, big American corporations. Well, what's he talking about here? 1 ruble attracts, 10 rubles of foreign investment. It's the same thing. It's just Russia at the head of the table with China, and I'd say even China's the bigger player here than Russia by far. By far.
And I'm glad you're putting this on tonight, because there's a whole lot of people asleep at the switch, have no clue what's going on.
Yeah.
The profits are going to be great. There's going to be comprehensive effect, but we need to do that timely, understanding the timing of the investment. So I'd like to ask the government to provide the necessary funds in the federal budget for
those on the take in the West, not caring that they will replace us as long as they get rich temporarily.
Of the Russian Far East by several times. I talk about titanium, lithium, niobium, and rare earths, which are requisite for the economy of the future. We have all of those resources available. The potential of these industries will improve the attractiveness of the
rare earth minerals like Biden gave to China by pulling out of Bagram.
The potential is great. Will help create cutting-edge creative industries in the Russian Far East, help build the infrastructure for the big data economy and AI, for piloting UAVs for commercial purposes and civilian purposes, in order to tap
unmanned aerial vehicles, drones.
Yeah,
AI, artificial intelligence. What do you think he's really talking about? You think Russia doesn't have a military-industrial complex? Yes, they do.
Oh, absolutely. And like I was saying, not everybody over here is on the take, but he is definitely funding all sides to try to get us fighting each other and undermine our own nation. There are others not on the take that are just useful idiots who think, hey, communism will be great. They'll be part of the ruling elite. No, you won't, moron.
The technological progress potential, we will continue to improve the scientific and educational potential of the Russian Far East. This region has already launched the construction of university campuses in Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk and in Khabarovsk, but that is not sufficient for the Russian Far East. I suggest we should embark upon several new projects, such as university campuses in Ulan-Ude, Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, and Chita. A new batch of construction is going to be implemented here for the Russian Far Eastern Federal University in Vladivostok. It'll have all the conditions for youth entrepreneurship and business incubators. We'll also develop universities in the Arctic. Apart from Archangel campus, we'll build a similar project in Murmansk. Also, on the basis of these campuses, we will launch cutting-edge engineering schools. 2 such schools in Sakhalin and Vladivostok have already been set up. They are meant not just to train specialists for industry and agriculture, transport and social sphere, and for the AI. They are also meant to come up with original innovative solutions for scaling new solutions in social sphere and management and in economy. Ruski Island has been hosting the Scientific and Technical Center of Rushydro for the last 2 years and specializes in innovative solutions in global energy, which are used for the technological upgrade of the energy sector in the Russian Far East. Our leading companies will also help build a big innovative technological hub on Ruski Island based on the Far Eastern Federal University. It'll concentrate on research and practical solutions in marine engineering, biotechnology, biomedicine, and other promising avenues to be pursued. I would like to ask the governments from the government and from Primorsky region to use the tool of a Far Eastern concession for the implementation of this project. I would also like to ask them to think about the tools for attracting scientists from Russia and from other countries. I refer to competitive motivational projects as well as the social packages for the specialists and their families.
Distinguished colleagues, we understand the success of implementation of our plans here in the Russian Far East and all over Russia depends, first of all, on people, on Russian families. I have said many times, we should not be guided by old logic. First we build plants and factories, and only then we'll think about those who work in these enterprises. Such logic is not just. It does not function in the modern economy.
Putin, a man of the people.
That is
No.
That is being constructed.
Now he's sounding like a populist.
That is why, together with the new economic plans for
all
Russian
part of the
forests,
charade.
we have also started major social initiatives. We have launched the mechanism of a unified subsidy. Thanks to it, we build and repair schools, kindergartens, clinics, hospitals, sports facilities. Urban environment is being improved as well as infrastructure. Today, we have already built almost 2,000 social and infrastructure facilities. Unified subsidy has become a powerful financial leverage.
He is building that. He is building communities. There's no question about it. But, you know, it's
social projects.
Socially, Russia's much different. Rights are not the same. It's a different kind of society.
For these purposes, and 36 such initiatives are
And
already being
I think
implemented.
people over there,
For instance, here in Primorsky region, a
you know, are
year-round ski resort is being built.
give up some things in order to get perceived stability. That stability comes through a degree of authoritarianism.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, as Franklin said, where was it Jefferson, about those who would give freedom for security deserve neither.
We'll continue to support the work of Far Eastern Concession.
Or safety.
We'll keep adjusting it
Yep.
for the benefit of citizens
perceived
and for
safety.
the opportunities of business. What I would like to underline as well, today, in the context of the state and private partnership, schools, airports,
Public-private
bridges,
partnership.
highways are being built
Did you
all
hear
over the
that?
country. Public transport is being
Populist.
Public-private partnership, same kind of thing over here, because to make their economy work and this new economic system, they really need to model it after what the West developed and figured out after literally thousands of years. It took mankind, humankind, thousands of years to figure it out. And we did that. And now they've developed an alternative based on the same ideas, the same concepts, the same system. They're just tweaking it to suit their purposes.
Yeah, they're not going to give their peoples any freedom. As long as they play along and stay in line, they'll benefit a little, but never like they would in a free market, full free market West. Although West has never been full free markets for my entire lifetime. That was long.
Yes. It's very true. That's demonstrable. You can prove that. You saw after the fall of the Soviet Union, the businesses, the industrial assets, they were all carved up, chopped up, split up, and then handed over to oligarchs for pennies on the dollar. And you see that same sort of thing going on right now, even in Ukraine, where land has been confiscated. I mean, I'm hearing the online influencers talk about Ukraine and how Western companies are just going to go in there and profit, and they're profiting from the war. But nobody has profited more, honestly, than Russia and Putin by annexing, just taking Crimea and taking the Donbass. And most of the people, a lot of the people, either were given very little, well, in fact, in many cases, they were given nothing. Farmers just kicked off their land and given nothing. But anyway, let him continue.
But the volume of such projects is not very high, less than 3% of GDP or 4.4 trillion rubles. To develop this sphere more intensively, we need to improve relevant legislature and the mechanism of work of the state and private partnership.
State and private partnership.
Make the risks for all
they are coming more our direction, yet idiots on our side are...
They criticize that. They're like, oh, you can't have a public, blah, 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 blah. Evil, evil, evil. It's this. Listen, it's the same idea. It's just that over here, it's being portrayed as capitalistic greed. Over there, it's some sort of, I don't know, virtuous philanthropic endeavor. No, it's not. It's the same damn thing, except over here, it's not really a truly free market. It's more a little more central planning. It's controlled. It's authoritarian, and the winners and losers are picked. And the people who get to participate are those who support that system. If you don't, you don't. Now, where have I seen that concept? The New World Order? Well, here it is, folks. This is what the New World Order is going to look like, because you know why? Do you know why? Because the idea is for this to not just coexist with our system, but to replace it. This is the Great Reset.
Yeah. They want,
in my view.
No, absolutely. I keep saying this over and over, but somehow people think Putin is Gorbachev. No, he's not a Gorbachev. He's not looking to coexist and improve things for his people. He wants his version of the New World Order. And we keep closing our markets more while they are opening them more about power and control. It's all power and control.
And I'm gonna say that it's not their version of the New World Order. This is what people have not clued into. This is the New World Order. We are the old world order. We're the old economic system. We are the West. This is all going away. This is not going to be business as usual. That's all old. Okay? This is the New World Order. People just haven't clued into it yet. This is what it is. You're looking at it right here. This is the plan. Trust the plan. This is the plan right here.
Be divided in a just way. For instance, when we implement publicly important projects, knowing
Putin, the supposed Christian, he learned from history. The Soviet was killed by Pope John
that the
Paul II
Cooperation of
and
Development
Reagan. So he
VEB.LF be
pretends to
one of
be a
the
Christian
obligatory
now.
participants of the project in state and private partnership. The cooperation would control the system of
Corporation.
risk allocation. It would confirm the benefit of the project for the state as well as for the business. We have already spoken about this with Sergei Ivanovich, and the corporation is ready for that. The same goes for the project of financing, project financing factory that stimulates private investment. So I ask the government, together with VEB, determine the specific parameters and scale for deals in the context of state and private partnership that should be implemented with the obligatory participation of the VEB. Going further, it's important for the private investment to be attracted, having long-term plans of development of industries and territories, as well as our settlements, cities, towns and villages for their comprehensive development. That is why we actively promote principally new instrument to improve the quality of life of people. They are called master plans. Many people know about it. Our Russian colleagues mostly know about that. We have already confirmed such plans for 22 administrative centers and urban agglomeration of the Russian Far East, where more than 4 million people live. For instance, for a satellite city of Vladivostok, this master plan will unite in one logic of development a whole agglomeration of Vladivostok, Artem, and Nadezhdinsky district. And we should start implementing it since the next 2025 year. What is the specifics, the meaning of and the approach of these new master plans? We need to see what was
Our
done
master
before on the local
plan
level.
to take
Economic
over
and
the
urban
world.
planning authorities were not
Yeah.
interacting
It's
effectively
true.
in economy,
Again,
business,
Putin is evil,
developing by
not
themselves,
stupid.
mostly
He
construction,
learned
utilities, social
the Soviet
infrastructure
fools
were
of the
severed.
past mistakes, and
As
he
a
will not
result,
repeat them.
this balance
And I'm not blaming him. He's got every right to do it.
No!
He can do it if he wants. He's not doing anything. In this case, he's not doing anything wrong. I'm just saying this is what it is. But people here, we've been fed this propaganda line that it's like, our system is evil, their system is great. Everything here is bad, everything there is good.
Yeah.
We're just a bunch of greedy capitalists, but not them. No, they're they're virtuous. This is a kinder, gentler kind of economy. Yeah, designed to destroy the West and exert global power. That's what this is.
And
Okay,
more
but
unuseful
go ahead.
idiots and more unuseful idiots on our side won't defend freedom and markets and let him overtake us.
Well, we're in a difficult position, and if you think that this kind of stuff is going to lead to peace, I suspect not. Okay, it's just not, because it's going to create all kinds of massive economic disruptions, and that's very dangerous.
And some on our side are paid puppets. Others are just useful idiot buffoons.
decisions were made and the urban spaces were also disbalanced. Now, the region and local administrations have had a series of discussions with the residents and business. They have found problems, determined the potential on all the fields of development for every city, and there is an individual long-term model for every city. In fact, in the context of one document, we have the concept of social, economic, and spatial development for every city, with commissioning of transport, utilities, energy, and other kinds of infrastructure. And I'll repeat, the integral task here is to improve the quality of life of citizens. This is our goal. The most part of the events of the master plans in the Russian Far East are already designed, but I need to say right now that 70
This
facilities
is all
will be commissioned
to
until
try
the
to
end of
make
this
him
year,
look like
and then
a
the pace of
populist.
implementing this master
Like
plan
he's
should
a
be
good
improved.
guy. Because again,
So
he's
it's our federal
evil,
subjects
not
and borders
stupid.
that are the most active in implementing this work. The Ministry for Development of the Russian Far East has created a special rating. The leaders in implementing master plans now are Sakhalin and Magadan regions, the Republic of Buryatia, as well as Kamchatka and Khabarovsky territories. I thank colleagues for the pace gained, and I ask to keep building it up. I'll point out that every year we will follow the dynamics of Far Eastern master plans. We'll point out the best regional teams and federal bodies so that the rest could follow suit and use their best practices. I'll add that we have made a decision about additional volumes of budgetary loans to implement master plans approved by the government. We have already allocated 30 billion rubles, and I'll underline this will be additional. There is a confirmed limit since 2025 till 2030, and I propose to allocate 100 billion rubles to implement master plan projects in our Far Eastern and Arctic cities. So above the limit that the regions can receive according to the standard distribution. Speaking about implementing urban development plans, we should not forget about forming new national projects. They're already on their final stage. Moreover, we need to allocate funds for the development of Far Eastern cities in separate sections. First of all, in the context of such national projects as infrastructure for life, effective transport system, family, long and active life, as well as youth and children. What else should be pointed out? Half of master plan spending for Far Eastern cities falls on extra budgetary sources. It means the investment of business, city-forming enterprises that are ready to build clinics, kindergartens, sports facilities, pave the roads, renew utilities networks, restore cultural monuments, and so on and so forth. As I have already said, we will support such investments of the
Give
business,
the people
I'm sure
some
that, building up
benefit.
the pace of transformation in cities, their share will grow. For instance, from the part of the strategic partners, big enterprises that have their social programs and actively participate in urban modernization where they develop their business. Their resources, capacities, and experience should also be used to make.
And it's not to say they can't build and aren't building a prosperous society. I think that they are. That where people, the standard of living will rise, and it'll become a first world economy and society. In fact, they already are. Well, the Soviet Union, Russia, they've been viewed more as like a second world economy, but they are, they're emerging, and they're now working together with these other second world economies and first world economies like China, and building up into a powerhouse to oppose the West.
Yeah, you're saying what I was saying. Giving them a little more benefit than what they currently have will make them complacent and allow the dictator to continue. Just bread and circus. Bread and circus.
And from what I see in Russia, I think the standard of living is really quite high. It's I think in many respects comparable to what you have in the United States and in Canada. They've achieved a lot, but they want more, and they don't want to be. They don't want to be reliant on the U.S. dollar, and they don't want to be part of, sanctioned anymore. So they will then give Putin and Russia the freedom to conduct themselves in any manner that they see fit from, this point on, because they won't be worried at all about what the West or the United States or anybody, certainly not the United Nations or anyone else, has to say about anything. Not that they really are now anyway.
Right. As far as their citizens go, again, people not understanding history and learning from Rome, bread and circus. As long as he's able to give them enough for their belly, a roof over their head, some electricity and water, they'll let him do whatever he wants.
Well, I'm talking too about the United States having no leverage, right? Which is what they want. They don't want to.
Right.
They don't.
Yeah.
But China's still very integrated into our economic system.
A reality.
Russia to some degree too.
Can fully finance the building of social infrastructure facilities in a city, town, or a territory where the investment projects are being implemented. After they transfer such a social facility to a municipality or region, they can receive compensation through taxes, benefits, or other preferences, and I ask the government to determine the parameters of such a mechanism. I'll underline that the experience of the Russian Far East will be a basis to scale the practice of master plans. As it was
Master plans.
pointed out in the
Central
message
planning.
to the Federal Assembly, up to 2030, such strategic documents will be prepared for 200 settlements all over Russia. So we're going to scale this program. Now, 22 settlements
To make
in
it
the Russian
global.
Far East, 200 settlements
Scale
all
it.
over the country, including anchor cities that contribute to the strengthening technological sovereignty of Russia. Going further, comfortable urban environment and
Build whole
social
new cities.
infrastructure are an integral part of modern comprehensive residential development. Far Eastern investors implementing such projects have a right for preferences of the territories of advanced development in the context of the Far Eastern District instrument. Now it is being piloted in 7 regions.
I'll be right back.
We plan
Sure.
to build 1,800,000 square meters of housing where almost 7,000 people are going to live. In the recent 5 years, the volume of annual the annual number of housing being built in the Russian Far East has doubled, and by the end of this year, we expect commissioning of 5,600,000 square meters of houses. Important determining role is being played by the Far Eastern mortgage. As you know, we have distributed it also for the participants of the special military operation. The loan at a record low 2% rate can be used by young families where parents are less than 36 years old. Moreover, this Far Eastern Hectare program can be used by employees of the enterprises of defense and industry complex, teachers and doctors. The same goes for those who live in the Arctic regions. And we are going to prolong it till 2030. I know that there were discussions in the governments about the terms of such mortgage in the future, and I propose to put a stop here and preserve the rate for Far Eastern and Arctic mortgages without change, 2% per annum. I'll add that since last year, in Primorsky territory, families that
2% mortgage
have
rates.
a third child born can receive a payment to repay their mortgage loan in an increased size, not 450,000 rubles as all over the country, but 1 million rubles. And we agree that the payment of the same size, 1 million rubles, should be introduced for large families in all the Far Eastern regions where the birth rate is below the federal district average. And I ask colleagues to expedite the adoption of legal acts for this measure to start functioning since the 1st July of this year, saying retrospectively. And separately, I would like to dwell on very important issues for our families, for our citizens who live far away from the big land, in remote and small cities and villages of the Russian Far East and Arctic. Our task is to ensure regular, uninterrupted supply of these settlements, reduce the time and cost of cargo delivery. Last year, we have adopted a law on northern delivery. Now we're planning everything in a centralized way on a federal level, and it is being implemented and coordinated in the regions. The transportation and maintenance of cargoes, of light support cargoes, are being prioritized. The supply and delivery of the northern delivery can be supported by budgetary loans. We're also going to develop the anchor transport logistic network of northern delivery, including highways, railway stations, sea and river ports and airports. Since the next year, the United Sea operator of the northern delivery is going to start working. It is going to deliver cargoes to Chukotka first, and then will expand the geography to Yakutia, Kamchatka territory, Arkhangelsk region, and Krasnoyarsky territory. Another topic goes for the medical servicing of citizens who live in remote cities and villages. There are settlements in the Russian Far East where you can go only by railway, and they lack doctors for medical and professional examinations to provide medical help. Since September this year, 5 Far Eastern subjects of our federation, and the next year in the 8.
Somebody in the chat just said, they're missing why what's wrong with big infrastructure projects. Nothing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just making note of it and saying that that's what's being used here to really kickstart this big economic expansion, or their hope for a big economic expansion. It's not. It's also very much Keynesian economics in a way. You use public works projects like building highways, bridges, electrical infrastructure, all of those kinds of things to expand the economy. That's an investment, and then you use that infrastructure to support industry by creating transportation systems, power systems, even economic systems, in order to generate more productivity. So you can extract resources from the ground, add value, produce things, sell them abroad, and sell them domestically, so that you add value to what you have in hand. There's nothing wrong with it, but on this scale, it's gonna have major implications. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just making note of it. And because of the way this is being rolled out, it's absolutely a competitor to the Western system. So we really need to take note of this.
Subjects. A mobile consultative and diagnostic center is going to operate. In fact, this is going to be a train, and it will be a real modern clinic and a pharmacy on wheels with cutting-edge equipment and doctors that are going to conduct different kinds of researches. They'll consult with their colleagues from the leading scientific centers of Russia. They'll use
you've
AI
got to
technologies
ask,
to form
are these
medical
the
reports.
means to
And
the
of course,
end,
they'll
or just
provide
a
professional
means
help,
to another end?
because
Right?
all the citizens of our country need access to medical
Is this
help,
altruistic
regardless of
or
where they live.
ulterior
And I would like to
motives?
thank
And I
every
say the
company,
latter,
all the doctors,
right?
nurses, railway professionals, and
Yeah.
other professionals that participate.
Hitler-
They
in
want
this
to be
and really
the top
needed,
dog. They don't
Yeah.
want to.
project.
That's
Yeah.
just all there is to it.
Hitler did not co-opt Bismarck's Autobahn concept in
I ask the government
infrastructure
to help
because he
the
wanted to
companies
help
to
the
ensure
German
uninterrupted
people.
work
It
of
was
this
a means
modern
to the
medical
end
center
for
and
moving his
pharmacy on
war
the
machine
basis
around.
of a train. One more thing, to strengthen ties between cities and villages of the Russian Far East,
And
will
to build the
continue
economy, and that's what the
developing
the Germans did
domestic
too.
air by 2030.
That
and
this is actually very much similar to what Germany did,
Yes.
what Hitler did. It's
Yes.
massive. He built the Autobahn. He used major public works projects
Yes.
to revitalize the economy, and that included arms manufacturing.
You build up your country's GDP, so you have that economic money to build your war machine with.
Said the number of passengers in domestic flights in the region should grow up to 4 million passengers a year. I've already instructed the government to approve the corresponding plan of specific steps and events. Its preparation has prolonged, so I asked to make all the necessary decisions rapidly. Another important issue is the aircraft fleet.
What
We
you
need
need to
build
do
our own
here
planes that
is
should be reliable,
read
of
between
high
the
quality,
lines.
and we
That's
need
what
the
Rick and I are
big
talking
numbers.
about. Reading
That
behind
is
the
why
lines,
I
between the
asked to
lines,
expedite the
what the
elaboration of passenger
ulterior
version of
motive
light
is
multipurpose
to this
bicycle plane, and
great,
it's to launch its
nostalgic,
serial
wonderful,
production as
populist
soon as
speaking.
possible. And the course and technical
Like
characteristics of the
Hitler
plane
building
should
a
be
greater
competitive, so that the
Germany,
price of the flights would be accessible
Putin
for
wants a
citizens.
greater Russia for ulterior
If the
motives.
situation is different, then we need to subsidize it. Dear friends, in the recent years, the Russian Far East has become more attractive for the youth, for those people who want to learn interesting profession, for professionals that want to show themselves and their skills, their knowledge, that want to try themselves in the profession that they have chosen. there is an inflow of youth from
It's
20 to
like the
25 years
Reagan
to the Russian
movie.
Far East in the recent
People
8
see
years.
the Reagan
Our targeted
movie.
measures of
Reagan
support have
buried the
functioned. For
Soviets
instance,
because
local
our
teacher-led
economy ballooned under
Mhm.
Reagan, which gave Reagan the opportunity to spend on defense, which buried the Soviets at that time. This is that in reverse.
It's
Putin, again, is evil, not stupid. He learned, but knuckleheads in the West don't learn.
Joseph, that is beyond insightful. That's exactly what's going on, and even worse because we have people being convinced to go out into the streets, march, protest, even tear up the sod at universities while shouting for defunding not just police but our military and promoting more isolationism. Pull right back. Don't
Yeah.
disarm, disarm. I mean, we're
Yeah.
at that point where people are like, let's just get rid of the military. Imagine what's going to happen if we get rid of the military and look at what's going on the other side. People
Yeah.
are not even figuring this out. They're building their economy, their military, their new world order while we are being convinced that we're evil. We should tear it all down. We need to just disarm, defund all of our military. All of our corporations are evil. We need to get rid of, even as RFK Jr. is saying in his video the other day, right on his website. You know, he's basically portraying Raytheon, General Dynamics, all these, the military industrial complex as evil, but that's what provides stability in the
On the
face of
planet,
this.
yeah.
Yes, that's what has been providing stability since World War II. But every
Yeah.
time, but because you're providing the stability, you're also an easy target for criticism, right? Because
Yes.
it doesn't matter if you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yep.
In everything, and you are the world reserve currency. You're the big dog in the world, the United States. Oh well, it's easy to pick on the big dog. I called it the penalty of leadership, and that's what that's the United States.
I
Anyway.
support Trump Vance, and Trump is saying we must maintain the dollar as the world reserve currency. I agree with the other parts. He worries me not because of him, but because of some of the people around him, including being influenced by a Tucker Carlson. So, but I sure as hell can't support commie ticket Harris AWOLs.
I don't know who the good guys are anymore.
Local doctor, local
Gray
medical assistant,
Very
Very
area.
gray. Yeah.
Not all good,
And,
not all bad.
teachers
That's
and
right.
doctors that go to the
very
Russian
true.
Far East to work in the towns and cities receive up to 2 million rubles, and mid-level medical workers receive up to 1 million rubles. We're going to prolong this program until 2030, and the payout ratio.
And that's it. So Yvonne says they will have their own central bank. Yeah, they will, but that's the point, isn't it? It's a central bank. It's a central bank system. It's all predicated on capitalism and debt, which is what the system is that we have here. It's not really any different in the end, but people here keep saying, we need to tear our system down. We need to replace it with this, and we need the gold-backed standard and all of this stuff without really even understanding what the hell they're talking about. It just sounds good. It sounds like it's something that we need to do while these guys are building their own alternative system, which is really just a mirror of what we have. In many respects, it is a mirror because there are many things about this that are opposite or even just upside down. They want to take the world and have the mirror image, flip it. They're flipping the world upside down.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
the truth.
And that's
the
why
truth, man.
I had you on my gray area show. Again, Putin is not 1,000% evil. There's some good in there. Our side also definitely not saints. A lot of bad in there too. But what's the lesser of the two evils? We may not like it, but lesser of two evils is still better than the highway to hell in a handbasket at 250 miles per hour.
And I guess the point is we need to be aware, because what good does it do us to destroy ourselves, to clear the deck for someone who wants to take over, essentially, right? Now,
Yeah.
I'm not, now, what does take over mean? Certainly economically, they want to take over as being the number one economic
The new
entity.
warfare is
Yeah.
more, like you said, economic battles as opposed to actual military.
Yes.
And that's why, in part, we're back to the domino theory of the 70s and wanting to counter Putin in Ukraine and keep him tied up and try to bleed him of some of this money. At the same time, we're nearly bankrupt, almost 40 trillion in debt in the US. We can't sustain it either, people.
Except I was saying the other night that I think it is sustainable when you look at it from a global perspective, because it's not the US dollar anymore. It's really the world dollar. It has become the world dollar. So you have to look at what's the potential economic output of all the countries that participate in the Western economic system, and is that enough to support the debt? And yes, it absolutely is. But the problem is, if these guys are successful with their challenge to that system, and then they even cut that in half, now you have a massive problem, because you have a surplus of dollars on the market that people no longer want, at least 50% of them say, okay, or maybe more. It creates a run on the dollar, which is to say people are selling it off, the dollar crashes. Now, good luck, paying off that debt or supporting it, because it undermines confidence. And in fact, it could destroy the currency. It's not just the debt. It's if people lose confidence in it, which is why they want you, everybody in our audience tonight, they want you to lose faith in your country, in your institutions, in your bank, in your hospital, in your police service, in your society, in your country. They want you to lose trust in it, lose confidence, so that you give up. They want you to give up, basically.
It's only sustainable, Rick, if
Yeah.
because only 2 times in history has our debt been this degree of percentage of GDP. World War II and now. We gotta get a Reagan boom or the Trump boom. We need a roaring 1920s again, so that economic value grows. So as a percent of GDP, that debt shrinks. So I don't disagree with you, but it is not sustainable unless we get that economic turnaround. Otherwise,
you got to get growth. You
we're
have
in the
to have
toilet.
growth. That's right. And if you undermine the trust, and if you then have half the world going with the other system, now you've cut your demand, right? And you've cut the potential productivity by 50% just by dividing the world in half. And now you've got a big problem, because you're right. I absolutely agree. Now you can't pay that debt. That's how everything crashes. And Chris is in the chat saying everyone has to agree to participate in the U.S. use of the U.S. dollar globally. When the U.S. weaponizes the dollar to harm nations, no one will want to use it when there is an alternative. And that is absolutely true as well. But that is because the U.S. has fell into this trap. They used the dollar to exert pressure on other countries through sanctions, so that they wouldn't have to use weapons, so that they didn't have to drop bombs. So they used the dollar instead. Now,
would you rather use money or bullets or mushroom clouds? Mushroom clouds is the issue.
And in order to provide security around the world, which is what the role of the U.S. became after World War II, right? That's what the Western countries required through NATO, but the United States, the biggest player, right? So it's an international effort with all the participating nations. But yeah, they used the dollar. In a way, they shouldn't have done it, but it was a kinder, gentler way of creating stability with countries that were unstable or threatening other countries, or doing things that were against humanity, humanitarian crimes. So the U.S. would use the dollar, sanction this country because of human rights violations, sanction that country because they invaded some other country, sanction this country because they were being a bad actor. And, and they're always caught in the middle, and then always demonized, always criticized. And yes, because some of those countries and acting in ways that You can argue each one of these cases individually, but the point is, it was instead of dropping bombs, but now it's like, well, you weaponized the dollar, so we don't trust your economy. Now that's being used to undermine stability here as well.
I
Get it?
agree with
Yeah.
you 100% here. It's like Trump's first term. I oppose running up high tariffs and engaging in tit for tat. You charge us 100%, we charge.
Yeah.
But what was the alternative? So I gave Trump grace on that, even though I opposed the running up of high tariffs. What was the alternative? Asking Congress to declare war on China?
And why did the U.S. become, the world policeman? It's because the United States had the bomb. So we were living under the nuclear umbrella. But in my view, the United States is not the big bully that everybody makes it out to be. No. Mistakes made for sure. But if the United States had wanted to just take over the world and become the giant dictator, they had the opportunity to do it right after World War II, both economically and militarily. They could have just, you don't do it, we say we're going to nuke you. But they didn't do that. They've never really done that, but that threat always there, mutually assured destruction, and it's just now we're into a real pickle, aren't we? Because it's the U.S. is demonized so heavily.
Well, FDR and Truman were both socialist sympathizers. They held Patton back from rolling onto Moscow like he wanted to do, and they killed Patton for it. But yes, even 5 years later, when we knew they were testing the bomb, we could say, no, must only be the only nation on the planet with that weapon. You either cease and desist, or we're dropping one on Moscow like we did Hiroshima. You're right. We could have controlled the entire planet, but commie sympathizers even then said, no, let Stalin get off the mat. Churchill knew FDR and Truman were morons.
And what's being, done now? We have, the proliferation of nuclear arms. Many countries now have have nuclear weapons. This has honestly destabilized everything.
Yeah.
Now it's not just we're getting this economic warfare from the other side because they have nuclear capabilities. Honestly, that is what is happening here as well. So there are many layers to this, but people need to wake up and open the other eye and start understanding that we need to be protecting our own self-interests as well. Otherwise, you're going to own nothing.
To your point, we could have controlled the world with that weapon. We could, if we are the evil colonialists, wanting to rule the world, as you said, we could have done it. We could have let Patton roll on and dropped a nuke on Moscow and had control of the entire planet. But we didn't, because we're not those that they claim we are.
And I'll tell you something else. Even if they had, it would have been the wrong thing to do. It's the wrong thing to do now, because even if you do that, even if you have that kind of power, as soon as you do that, you can't maintain that. And who would want to?
Yeah.
Who would want to rule over the world like that? That's pure evil. And that's not what we were. But what's going on right now? We're getting this assault, this pushback on the other side. And is it because we're truly evil and can't be dealt with? I don't buy it. I just don't buy it.
Right.
So
to your point, we could have become the evil we detested by indeed doing that, but we didn't. Yes, hindsight is always 2020. The only way of controlling the proliferation would have been if we indeed would have used it to insist we were the only one with it. But that cat's out of the bag. We are not the evil they say we are. We didn't do those things. I am dealing in speculations and what ifs here. I'm not advocating we should have done that. In the hindsight of 2020, it's the only thing that would have and could have stabilized the planet forever, instead of the German, like Patton said, he felt maybe we should have went to war with the communists. with the Nazis. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't think anybody wants to go that far. But again, Churchill understood the enemy of my enemy may be a useful temporary idiot, but they are not my friend. But Truman and FDR didn't get that. And when the war ended, allowing the communist expansion that they did, because they sympathized with it.
And Chris is saying we didn't need the nuke to control the world when the West controlled the world 500 years prior through colonialism. The bomb would have just cemented that control. Well, there's a degree of truth in that because, the West was more technologically advanced than other parts of the world. But I would say that it's more nuanced than that. It is not black and white. And there are so many, layers to the history and so many countries and so much went on. And it's just not that simple. It's not that, it's just pure evil or pure good.
Yeah.
And
the gray areas again. Right.
And everything was different in various eras during time, social standards, the economy, just the circumstances all the way around, all different all the time. And people tend to just overlay today's reality and standards onto history and apply that.
Times were different. And the Nazi thing again, we then became more technologically advanced because of what? Operation Paperclip. What, did you want the Russians to get all the Nazi scientists? But yet they're trying to say we're Nazis because we brought over Nazis to help us with our technology. Von Braun, for one, obviously.
Yeah,
but
rocket scientist.
Hey,
so,
right. Hey, dumbass, do you want the commies to have them?
And some scientists did go to the Soviet Union, some German scientists. So they had them over there too, but the war was over. And what are you going to do? You're going to just, if you want the war to be over, then you have to stop killing people. And that's what happened. They stopped killing people. And then it's like, okay, what do we do with all these people and all these resources now that, have essentially become the spoils of war? Anyway, more of this.
Eastern pay-out ratio. Another program goes for local cultural professional. It supports local clubs, creative centers, libraries, musical schools, museums, those people who preserve our cultural sovereignty, identity, our traditional values, those who educate our youth. And I ask the government to start implementing this program since the 1st January next year. And of course, if we speak about cultural professions that go to small settlements in the Russian Far East, they should also receive payouts with the increased Far Eastern payout ratios, as well as the possibility to participate in the Far Eastern mortgage program.
Yeah.
There are new museums being constructed in the Russian Far East.
Again, museums, he understands the importance of culture and, building communities for social stability. He gets all of that, right? So he's a very smart guy, Putin is. And in the chat over here, let me just find this again. Where did we go? I lost it. Where's the chat? Here it is here. Simplehorn said stability of the planet post-1945 was 100% based on the West, and most of that was the USA and the British Empire was bankrupt. France and Germany devastated. The USA was simply all there was. That is very, very true. I think you're absolutely right, and I think that just shows that how important the United States was, and I think it also shows the human side and the kind side, the gentler side of Western society. Didn't dominate, rebuilt Japan, rebuilt Germany. It was about rebuilding everything and creating a better world at the time.
And Germany and Japan are, of course, now our allies because we learned the idiocy of Wilson at the end of World War I. And the other thing is, too, we were the only nation on the planet, really, that us in Canada and Mexico that wasn't bombed into oblivion through World War II.
That's right.
For instance, in the context of this work, we are going to preserve the memory about the Kuril landing operation in the August-September 1945. It was one of the last battles of the Second World War. It has become the symbol of the courage of our soldiers and officers that defeated the fortifications of the enemy that seemed impregnable. Distinguished colleagues, the whole story of the Russian Far East, of this enormous region that covers more than 40% of our country, is written by committed, brave, strong-willed people. They explored and protected these lands. They preserved the traditions of indigenous people.
You know, okay. I would say this, though, okay? As much as people seem to idolize Russia for its role in World War II because of its contributions, right? You know, when I look at how did World War II start and what was Russia up to? They were aligned with Germany, and then they were splitting up Poland. They were taking the land. What were they doing in Ukraine, right? Before World War II, Stalin went in, he confiscated the land, like took it. Like this is not this was a country at that time, a country of conquest.
100 years of history people ignore of Russians and Soviets exploiting Ukraine. Russia, Stalin invaded Finland before Hitler invaded anyone. Why? He wanted the heavy water for Russia's atomic program. Yes, they were seeking the bomb early also.
They were too,
and
yes.
They invaded Poland the same time Hitler did. The Russians were, as I said, Churchill understood, they were a temporary, useful idiot for us, not an ally.
And Putin, he's trying to build national pride and give people his country's history in a way that is something
glorified.
So that be proud of your country. Okay, I get it, but then there's
nationalism, right?
National. Yeah,
right
sure,
now, like
but
Trump and MAGA, right? He said, and a lot of people try to attack "Make America Great Again." It is not America alone or America only, or I would not support him. This isn't World War II where the oceans can protect us. There's these things called planet bombers and ICBMs. We cannot be Fortress America anymore. Like it or not, it is a global interactive economy and we are dependent on each other. We cannot be America alone, and I would never stand for that. But America first, yes, but that doesn't mean the rest of you go to hell and we don't care about you. That's not what MAGA is.
They opened new places on the map of Russia. They built cities, factories, they paved the roads, they found deposits. Our predecessors that developed the Russian Far East were dedicated to their cause and to our fatherland. And the love for the motherland helped them to set really important big goals. Their heroism, self-sacrifice, and achievements today inspire everyone for the deeds. Everyone, or different professionals, doctors, teachers, cultural professionals, teachers in universities, businessmen, all those who work in the Russian Far East are planning to connect their life with this region, including managers of the regional and municipal commons. Since 2022, there is a Muravyev-Amursky program functioning in this region. It trains the personnel for public service. It is also going to include Arctic. The program is in demand and the competition is very high, up to 80 people for a place. Young and ambitious people see that the development of the Russian Far East and Arctic is one of the most interesting and promising tasks before our country. That is why we're going to prolong Muravyev-Amursky program until 2030. I'll repeat, together, the authorities of all the levels, business community, public organizations, citizens, need to participate in implementing new national projects and programs for them to receive a wide Far Eastern dimension. This way we'll make a step forward in developing this strategically important region of Russia and improving quality of life of people. And of course, we're going to widen the ties of the Russian Far East and our whole country with foreign partners, states and companies, our friends that are interested in a solid, long-term, mutually beneficial cooperation. This way, we'll continue strengthening the positions of Russia in the world. And I'm sure that together we'll achieve these goals without any doubt. Thank you for your attention.
So they're going to go here to questions.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, in the chat, it's all back to the Ukrainian Nazi Brigade crap and Putin's denazification talking point. Again, people who don't understand history, these are not Hitlerian Nazis. They are people who saw Germany as liberators against Russian oppression for the past 40 years before World War II. And it was a be careful what you wish for. Hitler as bad or worse than Stalin. But at that time, they saw them as, you're going to help us kick out the commies? Okay, come in. That's all that Nazi symbol is about in that brigade. They are not Hitlerian Nazis looking to rule the world or kill all the Jews. It's just a symbology of we are anti-commie, as Hitler was. Nazi Socis were against, just like El Duce fascists in Italy and Franco fascists in Spain were anti-Moscow Bath communists. People don't learn this all-encompassing real history to grasp any of it.
Well, and then I think it was last night or the night before. I mean, I showed you not Nazis fighting on the Russian side.
Yeah,
You know, it's not, again, it's not black and white.
right.
And neo-Nazi groups have been fighting. We're fighting even from the beginning with the separatists in the Donbass region on the Russian side, and they've now been integrated into the Russian military. So,
but Putin has that as a talking point, so people go with the denazification idiocy. As I've said before on your show, and I have no doubt on social media tonight, there'll be some idiot trying to accuse me of being a Nazi apologist or something. If Putin really wants to denazify something, have you ever been to California and seen the neo-Nazi marches there? If he wants to denazify, maybe he should invade California next. This isn't about Nazis.
Yeah, not really. But it's a way to dehumanize the enemy by calling them Nazis, and that's how you get people to go kill other people.
Distinguished guests, but before that, I have a couple of questions to you, if I may. If we are to look at the data of the Russian Statistics Agency for 2022, we see that the total population of Vladivostok is a bit more than 7.8 million people. At the same period, this year, we see some migration growth and uplift in 3 regions, specifically Kamchatka, Yakutia, and Chukotka. You mentioned that over the last 8 years, we've seen a considerable uplift in the amount of young people relocating to the region. But still, we could hardly call this situation stable. And in 2023, you saw a certain migrational inflow and then later again outflow. So what are the measures that could help us motivate people to stay in the Far East? Are those master plans that you mentioned in your speech. So how do you think, in order to make life of people here in the Far East better, what should be done? I understand it could take a long time to answer this question. Definitely. We certainly need to do more than we have done up until now, but at least we need to focus our attention on two major aspects. First one, we need to constantly improve the environment and conditions of living here in the region. We need to create more workplaces. And secondly, we need to make sure that living in this region is comfortable and pleasant. And most importantly, we need to make sure that every single person, every single family has a clear understanding that this intention is here to stay, that the planning horizon is long. Our intentions are serious, and by staying and working here in the region, you will create great prospects for yourself and your children. So seeing this future, seeing those prospects in the long run is crucial. First and foremost, we're interested in the influx of younger people here to the region. They are our future. We want them to set ambitious objectives, and we need to create necessary conditions for implementation of those goals. That's the major thing. And just one more question, if I may. You've already mentioned that the experience of the Far East in implementation of master plans will be scaled to other regions. How exactly will that happen? I've mentioned already that a certain novelty, if you could actually call it a novelty, is that we need to combine our spatial development and economic development. Because in the Far East and in Siberia, well, back in the Soviet times, how was the process structured? A factory would be built, an enterprise, and some very simple housing nearby. This is how small towns would emerge. There would be just one big enterprise, and around this enterprise, some kind of a small, hectic town would come up where people would live. This is the way how Baikal-Amur mainline would be built, and many other enterprises were evolving in this particular manner. Many regions were being shaped by those enterprises. Then the enterprise comes first, then some housing was built for people around it, and gradually, as the story would evolve, they would think what can be done additionally so that life of those people is actually a proper human life that is comfortable and pleasant. Well, the difference to the approach that we have for today is that both objectives have to be pursued in parallel. As soon as we start constructing a major enterprise or a factory, we need to think straight away where the people would live, what would be their careers, what we can offer to them in terms of culture, education, medical services, and those projects have to be launched straight away in parallel. I'm not even going to name them. I wanted to do that first, but I decided not to because I'm sure not all of it is most probably completed exactly.
And great. He's talking about building his country, building communities, having people build families, prosperity, a good country with great places for people to live, employment, prosperity. Perfect, right? That's great. But you know what I find really ironic is as people watch this from the West, they're like, gee, what a great leader. When it's happening over here, 15-minute cities, they're going to lock us in 15-minute cities and enslave us. Why is that? It's because of the propaganda.
Yeah. And the other thing is, too, if they wanted that, why did Putin get rid of Yeltsin? Gorbachev and Yeltsin, through perestroika, was opening up Russia to growth and cooperation and coexistence with the West. Putin didn't want that. That's why he ousted Yeltsin and been a dictator for the last 25 years.
Expected to. I don't want to say something and then you would catch me by the word and say, well, this project is not actually finished. That is true. That may be the case. But the major principle is exactly as I stated, to do this work in parallel on creation of the infrastructure for people and development of industry and economy in the broadest meaning. Thank you. And now, as promised, I would like to give the floor to our distinguished guests. I apologize. I'm very sorry for interrupting. As I mentioned, there are 22 residential locations that we try to develop right now according to those principles. And generally, in the nearest years, we are going to focus on more than 200 locations all around the country. Thank you. Wow. And now it is my honor to give the floor to His Excellency Prime Minister of Malaysia. Your Excellency, Mr. Ibrahim, please proceed.
Okay, I'm going to pull out of this and we're going to skip ahead.
Yeah, you know what? I was on the Wyandotte city zoning board of appeals. You mentioned 15-minute cities, right? There has to be some degree of land management, or you have complete chaos. You don't want factories buying up the block next to you and putting a massive factory on it. There are zoning. So we all agree a degree of land management has to be real. 15-minute cities, however, may be that bridge too far.
It's just technology. But if you think that, they're doing things a whole lot different in Russia than they are here when it comes to the technology, I think again, like it's not much different.
The situation at different fronts and in the border areas, what are the perils taken into consideration that the strikes are against the NPPs? When we talk about these things, we should think, first of all, about humans who are suffering from these acts of terror, and the sacred obligation of the armed forces is to thwart the enemy from these areas and to protect the citizens. And the whole of the country should do their utmost to give support to the people. And the goal of the enemy was to force us, getting jittery and moving the troops from one sector of the front to another, and stop our advance at the key front areas in Donbass, first of all. And the advancement in these areas is our ultimate goal. Did they succeed? Nope, they didn't manage to succeed. Our armed forces stabilized the situation and started forcing the enemy out. And the second, which is most important, no actions to contain our advance took place. More than that, relocating their large and well-trained reserves, the enemy got weaker at the key fibers, and our troops accelerated our offensive, and we gained a lot of territory. The East grouping has acquired an area of 5 by 7, and the center grouping is very proactive in Donetsk area, and they seized square kilometers of territory like 4 by 5, 3 by 5 kilometers, etc. And then another thing which is important, there are heavy losses for the enemy, both in manpower and material. I won't be throwing any figures to you. The information is available in the Ministry of Defense, and the figures of the losses are confirmed by a number of these sources. And as a result, it could result in the collapse of the front line in some areas, and the combat capacity of the Ukrainian armed forces could be lost. That's what our ultimate goal is. That's the general estimate of what is happening.
Did he just say what I thought he said?
The
goal, he said the goal is maintaining our armed forces. Ultimately, all this growth is about having the money to build the military. As I said earlier, he admitted it, not in the exact words I just used, but he admitted it.
I'm not sure that's what he meant, so let's listen to it again.
Territory, the East grouping has acquired an area of 5 by 7, and the center grouping is very proactive in Donetsk area, and they seized the square kilometers of territory like 4 by 5, 3 by 5 kilometers, etc. And then another thing which is important, there are heavy losses for the enemy, both in manpower and material. I won't be throwing any figures to you. The information is available in the Ministry of Defense, and the the figures of the losses are confirmed by a number of these sources, and as a result, it could result in the collapse of the front line in some areas, and the combat capacity of the Ukrainian armed forces could be lost. That's what our ultimate goal is. That's the general estimate of what is happening, and of course, the General Staff and the Minister of Defense report the situation to me several times a day. You have mentioned already that people.
I'm not sure what did you hear there?
I'm sorry. I was busy in the chat there, but I heard him say about the goal of keeping the military. So maybe I took it out of context, but to me, again, the point, like with the Reagan years and the Trump years, is to have a booming economy so that then you can handle your debt and maintain your military. I think he's a lot alike with us on that, but we want to try.
Largely goes without saying. Obviously, he wants a strong economy and he wants a strong military, and and I think with regard to Ukraine, at this point, the strategy appears to be on the Russian side to wear the Ukrainians down and keep the war going long enough that Ukraine loses its support, loses the financial support, loses the weapons support that the West has been providing, hoping that that's what happens. And I think that there's a lot of attention focused on this upcoming election. And there is hope, I think, that Trump will win so that he pulls support from Ukraine. And in fact, I'll bring this up. This is the clip everybody's actually talking about, where he supports Kamala.
And part of the bottom line is here, if others don't agree with me, Putin's end goal, you could read the book Putin's Brain. Ex-KGB wants to put the Soviet Union back together, and he is aggressive. If Switzerland, the neutral folks, want in on NATO, Finland join NATO, because again, Finland was invaded by Russia before Hitler invaded anyone. They know Putin's aims, but a lot of Putin apologists just have their blinders on and refuse to see any of it.
Okay, so let's roll this this clip. I think I've got it up. Okay, so this is where he says, well, he likes Kamala. He's in love with Kamala.
Yeah.
That if we can name a favorite candidate, it used to be Joe Biden, but now he is not participating in the election campaign, and he recommended all his allies to support Ms. Harris. So that is what we are going to do.
Yeah.
So he said that we should. That is why we should also do that.
Pause it.
Just let him go.
Well, her laugh, she's laughing. Her laugh is so fascinating. It means that everything is good, and if everything is good,
they want weak leadership.
For instance, if we're speaking about Joe Biden, there are so many sanctions against Russia introduced, and if everything is good with Ms. Harris, maybe she'll refrain herself from such measures, or maybe she'll change them. So in the end, it will be the choice of the U.S. people, and we will respect this choice.
Yeah, well, Trump had more sanctions on China, Iran, and Russia than any president in history before him. Biden lifted the sanctions and put a few here and there on to claim he was being tough on Russia. They want weak leadership in the West.
That is election interference.
Well, yeah, no question.
And we don't know who he really prefers, nor should it really matter. but it
Right.
does because by saying that, he's influencing voters in a way that maybe we're not aware of. If you believe what he said, you see, it's like a double negative. It's
Yeah.
like everything I'm telling you is a lie. It's that
Is
kind
he
of a thing. It's, you
right?
don't know, you don't know whether you should believe it or not. But
Right.
most people will just take that at face value, and
Yeah.
they shouldn't.
Is he saying it because he really does want a weak Harris, or is he saying it as a deflection because he really wants Trump? That you get in that circular argument
We
logic.
don't know.
But I would dare say he does want a weaker leadership here. There's no question. He wants America to not have an economic boon, right? Because then we
He,
don't have the ability to help Ukraine.
I can pretty much guarantee that he would rather have Trump than Harris, because Harris will probably continue to fund the war in Ukraine, and Trump probably not. He'll come to the table and try to end the war on day one, as he's said. And Vance has made it very clear he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine. So that alone should tell you a lot of what you need to know in this regard. And Putin saying what he said, like I said, they're trying to turn the world upside down. And when you're trying to do that, what you need to do, I think, is say the opposite of what the truth is.
And yes, and again, as we discussed on another one of your shows, exactly why Zelensky, who I don't support, he's corrupt. I support the Ukrainian people who have been oppressed by Russians for 100 years. Look up the history. See the Mr. Jones movie about World War II that you are all arguing about in the chat. See Mr. Jones. Reality of what happened then and why they wanted Germany to come in to kick out the Russians. It wasn't pro-Nazi, it was anti-communist. But I forgot where I was going to go with this. But yeah, no, that's we talked about before why Zelensky at least isn't completely stupid and got off Biden's leash and went into Russia. You've got to have that bargaining chip. If Trump gets in and is going to say, you're going to sit down for peace talks, you've got to have that bargaining chip.
The thing I keep saying, this is the New World Order. This is the real New World Order. Well, Putin also gets into, we're kind of running out of time here, but Putin starts talking about Russia investing in Bitcoin. He also gets into the digital ruble. People here freak out. They go, we can't have a digitized currency. We can't have a digital dollar. Well, he talks in this address here about a digital ruble. All right. So he is adopting digital currency over there too. And in fact, here's a video about exactly that. And it's been approved. The digital ruble. That's what that video is about.
Yeah. And Putin's version of the New World Order is indeed a cashless society, just like Klaus Schwab's desire of his New World Order vision, a cashless society. And people engaging in the digital coins are useful idiots helping them build the cashless society, because then after you've built it, the governments will take it over and control every transaction, see every transaction, tax every transaction.
So if you think that people don't look at the other side. They're only looking over here and they're saying evil capitalists, evil USA. They're just going to create this digital currency to track blah, 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 blah. Well, they're doing it in Russia. And while people are saying we need to tear down our system and be just like Russia and have a republic here.
President Vladimir Putin has signed a law that will see the country's ruble going digital. Moscow says the digital ruble will function as a third form of currency alongside cash and contactless payments. It will be issued by Russia's central bank, and
until
transactions
cash
will
is
be conducted on
outlawed.
a special non-internet platform. The Russian business community has already endorsed the digital ruble, saying it could help decrease costs and commissions. The digital currency is aimed at giving Russian citizens and enterprises the potential for boosting cross-border payments.
Control.
This comes as Russia
Control
ramps
is
up
what it's about.
cooperation with other countries in national currencies in a push to decrease use of the dollar. According to Chinese leader Xi Jinping, members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization are working hard on expanding their economic ties. Meanwhile, Beijing says its digital yuan transactions have significantly risen to a total of over $240 billion in the past year. And in India, the central bank has encouraged local lenders to promote the newly introduced digital rupee.
And you think that you're going to tear this system down,
right?
And replace it with something totally? No, you're going to get this.
Once it's all digitally, centrally controlled under the New World Order, either Klaus Schwab or Putin, either way, they have full control. They shut off your money supply if you don't toe the line. And useful idiots are rushing us headlong into the cashless society at the same time they say they're against doing.
Yeah, and and I personally, I'm not really that afraid of it. I know everybody's afraid of it. I'd like cash to stick around. I'd like there to be cash alongside a digital currency. But I also see the benefits of having the convenience, the speed, the efficiency of a digital currency. It makes a lot of sense. And in a globalized world economy where countries trade with each other, it makes a lot of sense because what are we going to do? Like load billions of dollars in dollar bills onto planes and fly it from one place to another? I mean, that's what Obama did for Iran when he was paying them off with huge billions of dollars in payments. But, Iran, there's a perfect example. What have they done? What's Bitcoin really about? When they talk about they want to be able to track it, it's because countries like Iran were the earliest adopters of Bitcoin because they were sanctioned. So that became the alternative method of trade, which was an anonymous form of transaction where they could transmit large sums of currency back and forth for all kinds of transactions, including arms transactions, without the United States or the West being aware. That's why the United States has been concerned, and Western countries concerned about digital currency and Bitcoin, because it's been used by arms dealers, drug dealers, all kinds of different organized criminals. So this is why. But it's those countries, honestly, that have adopted it earliest. You've seen other countries even start to build entire economies around Bitcoin. The United States coming on board with it now. But if you think it's any different, like over in Russia, that's just my point. And what did Putin talk about as well during this conference? There was a whole section where he talks about climate change. So, I mean, like, it's the same stuff. This is not
power
much different.
Control. It's power and control. And I'm not against digital. I use a credit card a lot of times and then pay it off because it's easy. The digital transaction, as long as we have choice, the freedom of choice. But once cash is gone, there is no more choice.
Right. You want some I want those physical dollar bills still out there, but and people, like, we have to go to the gold back digital currency. Well, the gold standard, even that's sort of obsolete. It truly is. I mean, I understand it, and I understand that gold can provide stability for an economy. But when you're dealing with economies on a world global scale, do you know how much gold you have to have? Like, no system has ever actually backed up dollar for dollar the currency with gold, the equivalent amount of gold. It's always a fraction. That's why it's a fractional banking system. Okay? Fractional.
But in order to counter the BRICS momentum, I've been saying the GOP-led House needs to introduce we will return to a whatever, gold, silver, mineral, rare earth backed currency. Again, not entirely, but at least partially. It will take decades to do it. But the only way BRICS momentum can be stopped is if the West and our dollar is at least going to be on track to be backed by something and not just purely fiat Weimar Republic, print billions of it, and you need a wheelbarrow full of bread for a loaf of bread.
In theory, the dollar, U.S. dollar, has been backed up by oil because Saudi Arabia, after Nixon took us off the gold standard, then all the nations buying oil from Saudi Arabia had to buy it in U.S. dollars. So by default, it became the world reserve currency because the oil coming out of the Middle East was all being purchased with U.S. dollars. That's why the Middle East is so important.
Yeah.
Now that has sort of come to an end. And so it's destabilizing things even further, putting more pressure on the dollar. But the reality is, you see, people don't understand this. The United States, in order to provide stability, agreed that in exchange for Saudi Arabia requiring the dollar to be used to purchase oil, the United States provided protection, military protection. So that was the trade-off. So really, what's backing up the dollar now? It's the military industrial complex. Because why? Because it provides peace and stability in the Middle East and around the world, and that's where the United States has come. Now, that resulted in massive prosperity because the dollar surged. You didn't have the gold-backed currency anymore, so that allowed the economy to expand, because by deshackling the economy from the confines or the restrictions of needing to have actual physical gold to a certain level, now you could become a global economy. Because to put that much gold for like a global currency, massive amounts of gold, you'd have to build like a 1,000 pyramids or something to have enough gold just for the fractional reserve system. But do you see where it has gone?
Yeah.
And so now the United States is demonized because, it's just the evil military industrial complex. Because when that prosperity came, the United States also said, well, you know what? We now have so much wealth because the service we're providing in stability to the world is generating that wealth. And because we're building the arms to maintain that umbrella of security for the world, we'll send out production, manufacturing, which is now like a second tier level of the economy versus this, the security and oil industry that is propping everything up. So we'll let China have a lot of this production, and Taiwan and Vietnam and all these other countries. So we'll allow the countries to invest in all of these other places and build up the global economy, and we will all prosper. That's what it was. That's why they went around and they call that, the idea from a socioeconomic perspective was to spread liberal democracy. But the more that we did that, the more we were demonized for trying to spread democracy and freedom and a free market economic system by communists and fascists who say, no, you're just evil, greedy capitalists trying to control everything with your weapons of war. And they would then, exert efforts to undermine the West, and the fighting continues, and it never really stopped after World War II, and they just would not accept or didn't want that kind of system. So this is where we're at, folks.
No, because
because
there are too many people like a Putin or a Xi who cherish their power and control. They can't let that go. And I would not object to oil reserves. We have so much of it as being one of the elements that help back the dollar, but it's got to try to be backed by something again, or BRICS will overrun us.
Because if they cut the world in half, and then you've got this amount of debt that has been racked up because you are basically you're at the helm of a world economy, but now suddenly half your economy is cut in half because they take half of it. Now you've got a big problem because how are you going to manage that level of debt? This is why we ran this whole thing tonight. It's because this should lay out for you the danger that we are facing. This is potentially a global economic depression, or at least a semi-global, half the world being plunged into poverty. And that's us.
Yeah,
So
that's the goal. And again, yes, I'm so glad you invited me to talk about this. As you said before, this is warfare. We are at war. It's an economic
Yes.
war. It's not a hot war yet. It could boil over into nuclear Armageddon, but
Right.
we all hope it doesn't. But we are at war, and some people refuse to recognize that it's happening.
And if we capitulate, if we just say, oh, yeah, well, you know, the BRICS nations, let's just let them do what they want to do and whatever. And we'll just pull back and we'll just give up in the Middle East and we'll just give up in Ukraine and we'll just give up on, you know, trying to maintain the dollar at its current level. Just, you know, because we are evil. And so we are just a bunch of greedy, you know, you buy into that and then you start defunding everything, defund the police, you know, defund the military. Well, guess what's going to happen? Like that's exactly what they want. And we can't allow that to happen because it will destroy everything here in the West. It will collapse. Now, then the other side is just going to take over, and then it won't be just an economic issue. It will be a social issue because we will be dictated to by the other side in how we live. And you're worried about 15-minute cities? Well, and the New World Order, that's where it's coming from. This is what I'm trying to tell you. The New World Order is not us. The New World Order is not our system. We're the old world. This is the New World Order that they want, and they're going to impose it on you. You're going to own nothing because your economy is going to collapse. And because we are now in debt, because we've been borrowing, like our system has been set up so that we outsourced all of the production and became a service-based economy, including the service of providing military security for the world. And because we've been sending foreign aid out to all these countries, billions and trillions of dollars over the years, haphazardly, just because we want to be virtuous people, they're preying on our vulnerabilities, they're preying on our freedom, they're preying on our naivete and our stupidity.
Yeah.
And and our willingness to self-flagellate, blame ourselves, feel guilty, and we've allowed our institutions to become infiltrated so that we destroy ourselves. Yeah. This is what is going on. We are at war. This is what's happening. Wake the hell up, people.
You're talking about an economic Neville Chamberlainism, an appeasement, a surrender, and we will be under their boot if you fail to learn that Chamberlain lesson for World War II.
Don't shoot the messenger. Too late. They've already shot me.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, you know what? And I understand there are people out there who just don't want to get into this nitty gritty. It's like, you know, if an ostrich, like in my Terror Strikes book, the ostrich principle, if you bury your head in the sand, maybe you'll be lucky enough to be spared.
Here's the danger. Honest guys, I'm just going to be straight up with you. I don't know who the good guys are anymore because I see foreign influence.
It's gray area.
I see foreign influence in our society, in our institutions, in our media. We talked about it just before we got cut off earlier about media influencers, even within the West, right? Bringing Russian messaging here, you know, Chinese, Iranian messaging. Well, you know, I don't know, like Russian collusion on the one side. On the other side, they stole the election. How much of this is true? I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Regardless of what you believe, just look at what's going on in our society. We don't just have public, we don't have civil political discourse anymore. What we have is Republicans and Democrats being described as enemies. All right? We have conservatives and liberals in Canada and the NDP not as political opponents. No, they're the enemies. So now, because of all of this, and I'm telling you that I believe it, and it's demonstrable, you can see it. It's this propaganda that we're all being fed on both sides.
Yes.
So that we are so jacked up. We're not just fighting an election. We're fighting a freaking civil war on a level that hasn't gone kinetic yet, but it's at that level. I watched Dan Bongino today, and he literally described, he said, we are fighting, what was the words? But he described Democrats as the enemy. No. If you're a conservative, liberals are not your enemy. They're your neighbors. All right? When they say that there's a uniparty, there sure as hell should be. In this sense, we should have, because in Canada, we have the ruling party, the government, and then we have His Majesty's loyal opposition. Loyal opposition. But not today. No, see, people see it as the other side's the enemy.
Yeah.
No, we can't be fighting each other on that level. We need to be loyal to our country. We need to be loyal to the system. We need to fix the problems within the system. But we can't be demonizing the other side by calling them Nazis. Both sides calling each other Nazis, just like in Ukraine and Russia. They're Nazis. They're Nazis. Everybody's a Nazi. No, we have to get back to a place where you understand that your minds are being twisted around with a lot of jacked up, twisted information to get you upset. And I'm telling you that both sides are lying to you. I'm sitting here tonight and our audience is diminished because people don't want to hear what I'm saying. But I'm convinced that what I'm telling you is the truth. We need to understand that the truth is not on the extreme of this side and it's not on the extreme of that side. That stuff is designed to get the two extremes to fight.
Yeah, and that's what I'm here to back you up on. I've said before on your show, every side engages in propaganda. Even my side. I try to be an honest broker in it when I'm on your show and call out the propaganda no matter where it's coming from. And like you said before, Putin is funding both the left and the right. Some on my side, I know I can't trust, just so he can keep us at each other and not paying attention to him.
And if he really wanted to help, and if he really wanted prosperity for us as well as for himself, when asked that question about which candidate would he like to see elected, he would have kept his mouth shut. He would have said, he would have said, let the American people decide. But he didn't do that. He picked one, and it didn't matter which one.
Right.
Because either way, it just creates more division, and he knows it.
Because again, yes, the propaganda machine of both sides will be going on. See, he said Harris from the right, and on the left, they'll be saying, no, he said Harris is a dodge because he wants Trump. And the circular logic.
The big takeaway from that is this. He proved right there that he's not our friend.
Correct.
He's no friend of the West.
No.
Because he didn't keep his mouth shut. Because he did that to serve his own interests.
To foment the division, as you said.
Keep that in mind, folks, as I know so many of you in our family are convinced that Russia is somehow virtuous and good and that,
devoid of history.
That the answer to that question alone tells me, and it should tell you, no, he's not on your side. He's not on our side. He's on his side.
He's making a useful idiot out of a lot of you. And
Out of
I'm
all
going to
of
get a
us.
lot of hate on social media tonight for saying that. But indeed, he's looking to pit useful idiots at each other.
And with that in mind, start looking at everything. Look at all the information we shared with you here tonight. Propaganda, the exposure of a big portion of this propaganda machine is now emerging, right? And I'm guilty of it myself because I've bought into, in the past, some of this messaging, not realizing what it was. So I've been tricked at times, but I have a job and an obligation to you, a responsibility that I made a promise that I will not lie to you knowingly, and I will always serve your best interest. I'm here to serve the public.
Yeah, you and I are both the same on that. On Before It's News, I got a piece. I've been right, I've been wrong, but I will never hide my history. If I find out I'm wrong, I will admit I'm wrong. And the problem is there's a whole lot of people who will cling to their delusion because they can never be willing to admit they were wrong about anything.
Well, and all I'm saying is be careful. I don't know who the good guys are and the bad guys. I don't know. I'm not endorsing any candidates. I'm not picking a side, really. I just know we're in a very dangerous place. I think we are at war. I've said it over and over and over again. We are in the middle of an information war, but I am convinced of this. As much the problems that you're seeing domestically here at home, yes, they are the result of infiltration. But I remain more convinced than ever tonight that we need to save our country. And that means we need to, the first thing we need to do, the first step towards solution is stop trying to tear it down. Find your national pride. Embrace your flag. Stop viewing the people from the other party in your country as the enemy. They're not your enemy. They are a competitor. They have some different ideas, but we need to learn to respect that and find a way forward without killing each other or beating each other up in the streets. We're being manipulated. And the sooner we figure that out, the sooner we'll stop getting out into the streets trying to destroy the very system that was designed to save us.
Yeah, the ruling elites of all sides, every party, the ruling elites want the little people at each other so that your focus is not on them.
If you don't heed what I'm saying to you tonight, I fear we will be plunged into a civil war.
Hot civil war, if not fallout for the sake of national pride, can be used to start a hot war against another country to distract you from the issues at home. That has certainly happened before. So either a civil war or World War III, either one is not going to be good for any of us.
That's right. And Joseph was absolutely on the money when he said that what we're going through right now is actually the same sort of thing that happened with the fall of the Soviet Union. The United States was prosperous at the time. There was basically a spending race that took place. The Soviet Union couldn't keep up.
Reagan bankrupted them. Yes,
that's right. And so they used the economy as the tool to bring the Soviet Union down. They're doing very much the same thing
exactly.
Right now
to your point, again, it is economic warfare back the other direction. Now, again, Putin, KGB, he learned from the mistakes from the fall of the Soviet Union before. He won't repeat them. He is using what he learned against us now. The same thing we did to them, he is trying to do to us.
This is not an Alex Jones style emergency broadcast. This is a real emergency broadcast. Please, please, for the sake of your children, your grandchildren, future generations in your country,
Right.
Please.
If
wake
you
up.
wanted to turn this into Alex Jones, I would accuse Putin of being a lizard person. But we all know that's Zuckerberg.
This is very real stuff. This
No,
is
this is
very,
serious.
very real stuff.
Real
Very
serious stuff. Absolutely. I
And-
threw that joke in there, but God almighty, people,
We gotta,
this is serious.
And we got to support what we've got, support our system, support our country. And I will, in the nights ahead, I promised the other night that I would get into providing you with ideas for real solutions. But the first thing you have to do is stop trying to tear it down. Don't lose faith. We must maintain faith and trust and confidence in our system, in our economy, in our country, that it can survive, that it must thrive, because not only is the safety and security of our nations at stake here, but the world's stability is at stake as well. If this system collapses, at least half the world will be plunged into economic despair. We don't want that. I want everybody to prosper, including people in Russia. I don't have anything against Russians. I don't have anything against Russia, but we need. But this trajectory we're on, it's immoral. It's wrong. What's being done to us is wrong. It's a form of warfare. It's absolutely a war. And I have to warn you about it, because we need to get back to a better place. And we can, if you wake up. Joseph, final thought for tonight.
I am ready for bed. I think you've definitely pushed some buttons, and I definitely said some things that I know people are going to be on social media all night. Joseph this, Joseph that, out of context, but it is what it is. We try to lay out reality as best we can deliver it. And again, all sides. Every side in any conflict, and indeed we are in economic warfare, engages in propaganda. My side does it, the other side does it. I try to rise above it as best I can when I can. But like Rick said, sometimes you can get caught up in something. You've got to be able to be willing to make it religious. As a Christian, hubris is the sin, not pride. You should be proud of your kids. Hubris, if it's all about you and only ever about you, that is the hubris, that is the sin. We've got to be willing to admit to ourselves we can be wrong, and admit we are wrong when we discover such.
Love you guys. Pray for peace and work for peace. Starts with each of us as individuals.
But I agree with peace through strength as the only way we're going to keep a peace.
And with that, folks, signing off. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.